We're going to get a countdown, or how are we going to do this?
We are live, brother. I'm just giving it a second. And that was actually on the recording. All right.
This is J.D. Closser, 1998 Indiana Mr. Baseball and graduate of Alexandria Monroe High School, former Colorado Rockies catcher and current Atlanta Braves catching coordinator. Welcome to This Week in Baseball across Indiana.
Thank you, Mr. Closser. Here we go. Episode 3, February 6th, 2022 of This Week in Baseball across Indiana. We got the full crew here with us today. Captain Craw, Steve Craw up in Elkhart, Indiana. Sweet Lou of Lafayette, Jeff Luzadder's chiming in. De La Coach, Mark De La Garza of Fort Wayne and Summit City Sluggers has chimed in. And Papa Beach, Chris Beecham is on the healing mend of another knee replacement back from Florida. And me, Hardy the Hat Guy, I'm the mouth of the organization. Couple goals for today's show. We're going to try to get Steve Craw to smile. And number 2, we're going to have Hardy the Hat Guy talk less and try to get these guys to chime in. Everybody on board with that? Here's our agenda you see there at the top. We're going to recap to start things off. We're going to go around the horn. Then for today's top 5, I'm telling you why I should be the next Cincinnati Reds catcher. Of course, the whole theme of today's show, remember last week we were talking about some of the top teams from across Indiana historically. This week, we're talking people. We're talking players, coaches, and personalities. So we're going to throw a few stats up. Then we've got one of the things that's been talked about quite a bit. We've got a couple special guests with us. Sean Manaea and Jarrod Parker are going to chime in and give their all-time All-Indiana starting lineup. And we're going to go through. We have a great selection here of, we can't talk about players in Indiana and keep the show under 5 hours. So what we're going to do is we each handpicked 3 players, coaches, or personalities from throughout history. Some of them are historical players and coaches. Some of them are active. It's a great mix, and I am looking forward to it. Of our full history of episodes, all 3. I think this is going to be the most fun we had in the show. I'm really looking forward to this. Then Sweet Lou's taking us home with the final out this week. He's got a good one. So to start things out for our weekly recap, let's go around the horn from top to bottom there. Papa Beach is up top with that nice Ole Miss hat you got on there. I cheated a little bit. You had to help me out there at the beginning. I won't lie. But Chris, I know you just got back from Florida, a little great family vacation there. I know you're still on the mend from a knee replacement. What's going on in your life? What's going on in the baseball world? What are you working on?
Just trying to get healed and ready for baseball, ready for the weather to warm up so we can get outside. Baseball-wise, I haven't paid much attention this week.
We've had a few things going on, yeah.
Yeah, busy with a few other things, but I'm really just ready for the weather to break and to heal.
Tell me, how's that? How are they? Do you know the status on that Huntington University baseball field? Is that done?
It's done.
It is done. Well, we're looking forward to seeing that one. When things get warm out, we're going to, and I know college games have already started. We're going to start our full coverage of college games here in a couple weeks. Of course, we got our college season preview show coming up. I believe that's next week, isn't it, guys? Yeah. College season preview show coming up next week. And I know when we get down to Steve down there, man, he's been talking and he's been wheeling and dealing, talking to people. Let's go over to Lafayette. Sweet Lou, you've been busy this week. Tell us what you got going on.
I've been, with the help of Steve and you, I got been working on a birthday list. We're going to be announcing some birthdays every week. I would mention being a Reds fan, but this guy's still the all-time home run hitter. Henry Aaron would have been 88 years old yesterday, so happy birthday to Hammer and Hank. And working on some college schedules and rosters to get ready for next week's show. I know through Twitter, IU Kokomo won their first baseball game a couple days ago, so congratulations to them. And like you mentioned, some of the others are going to be starting to play here soon. So that's about it.
I'll tell you what, you said IU Kokomo there. I know Steve reached out and made contact as we go down to you, Steve, and Elkhart. I know you made contact with the new athletic director for IU Columbus, who is going to start having a baseball team. We're going to have him on the show here soon. Steve, you've talked to a bunch of people. Tell us who you've talked to this week, and what do you got looking forward as far as people you're interviewing?
Ryan Carpenter, who's a Bremen high school graduate, he's now the head coach at Bremen, and I talked to him. He came back to the program after a couple of years of had his first child. He's got a couple, and he's all fired up about that. In addition to talking to all the coaches and trying to line them up for our college show, I also did a story on about Joe Cooch, and Joe Cooch is the head coach at North Central in Farmersburg in Sullivan County, south of Sullivan. He's involved in everything you can think of in youth sports down there. He's this is his 8th year as the head baseball coach. He took over in the Midway 2020, the football program. This last year, they won their second sectional in football, even though he missed 3 games and was in the hospital for 9 days with COVID. He's still on oxygen, but he's plugging right along. He's got quite a story. So wish him the best. And you kind of mentioned IU Columbus.
Oh yeah, IU I forgot about the PU part.
Zach McClellan, who played at IU, he's the athletic director there now, and so we're hoping to talk to him and see what plans they might have for baseball and other things. But he's super busy with getting ready for that. That's a couple of things we got cooking.
Mark, let's go over to Fort Wayne. A couple things. Steve never has a couple things going. Let's go to Fort Wayne and talk to Coach Della Garza. Mark, what's going on with the Summit City Sluggers facilities, and what do you got planned going forward here?
Well, this week I've been working on trying to get things that aren't available. The supply chain is really having an effect, and I know that every organization, doesn't matter if they're a travel organization or a college or a high school, they're having troubles getting things. Shoes are hard to come by. Baseballs. I got a report that I can't get baseballs until March.
Jeez.
Okay. Helmets. I just got helmets delivered this week that were ordered the 1st of October. So there's supply chain issues that are making things real frustrating, but you just kind of hope everything falls into place. And that's pretty much what I spent my week on, trying to buy bags, equipment bags, buy baseballs, get uniforms ordered, all that sort of stuff. And it's just not the way it used to be.
Well, and Steve or Jeff, one of us talked to a college coach at the IHSBCA clinic a few weeks ago, and he was talking about the same thing. It might have been the Bethel coach, or it might have been Indiana Tech. I was trying to remember, but they were needing helmets, and the same thing Mark said. They weren't going to be able to get them until like May. So he's literally just going by every Dick's Sporting Goods and every other sporting good, the area store, and buying hats and painting them and everything themselves. I don't know which coach exactly that was, but yeah, that's that's impacting baseball as well. So the series, as we move forward here, like I said earlier, the topic of today's series or show is historical baseball players in Indiana. Now, let's go back though. Earlier in the week, thanks to Zan Barksdale, you'll have to look it up. February 2nd, this past Tuesday, was National Catcher's Day. Zan Barksdale, who's a good Twitter feed, by the way, is who got that National Catcher's Day taken care of. So, in response to National Catcher's Day, that brings us to today's Hardy's Top 5. Here we go for Hardy's Top 5. Today is February 6th, 2022. If you're just tuning in to Hardy's Top 5 video here. Make sure you go to baseballacrossindiana.com to check out our full episode of This Week in Baseball Across Indiana from February 6th. Earlier in the week, February 2nd, was National Catcher's Day. That's why we had a catcher, J.D. Closser, open the show. Also, you know that Brownsburg graduate Tucker Barnhart is no longer with the Reds. He's now with the Tigers. So for today's Hardy's Top 5, Top 5 reasons Hardy, me, should be the new Reds catcher. Here we go. Number 5. I was a big deal catcher back in Little League. What? That is a big deal. I hit that home run. I'm sure you heard about it back in 1978. You know, I had a PBR ranking too. Not quite the PBR that we all know today, Prep Baseball Report. This was 5 old dudes sitting in lawn chairs back there in 1978. And they had PBR cans all around them, so we called them the PBR crew. But they said I was pretty good, so that's official PBR ranking. Think about it. Number 4, my sub 1 minute pop time. That's right. It's not exactly where I want it. 50 years old, though, sub 1 minute, that's not bad. Upswings there, I think I got a chance. Number 3, I no longer need a cutoff man on throws to second. That's legit. Now, there's a little bit of loft, a little bit of arc to the ball, but it gets there. No cutoff man needed. Legit. Number 2, my unrivaled bunt game. That is legitimately legit right there. Bunt game still real at 50 years old. I got it going on. Number 1, I bring marketing. I bring with me tens of adoring fans. Okay, maybe not tens. Let's see. Mom, Dad. There we go. Top 5 reasons Hardy should be the new Reds catcher from baseballacrossindiana.com. What do you think, fellas? I think I still got it. I got a chance. I'm 50 years old. Don't tell me to give up my dream. All right, let's move on to some real baseball talk here. We're talking stats. Now, we're not going to go through like we did last week when we went through every region and just picked it apart. But we want to start, before we get into talking about some of the players that each of us are going to talk about, I want to go through and just throw out some simple stats. Last week, we brought up this graphic right here. This was our BAI regions charts, how we separate the state just for argument purposes, if nothing else. So here's our stat. Remember, this week we're talking players and coaches. So that column right there, star MLB, that is players who have at least had a cup of coffee in Major League. We're not talking just draft picks. We're talking you had to have at least seen a pitch or thrown a pitch or been in the outfield. You had to have your cup of coffee in Major League Baseball. That middle column, Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame. The right column, National Baseball Hall of Fame. Now, we could pick this apart, but if you look at most players who have had at least a cup of coffee, Southwest region down there, Evansville, Jasper, that area. Most people in the Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame, that's Central Indiana. That's our Indianapolis area. Most players in the National Baseball Hall of Fame, West Central Indiana. Where do you think they're from? Who do you think they are? Well, let's put the slides in the right direction here and let's look. Here are everybody at least born in Indiana who are in the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Those 3 in West Central Indiana, Max Carey from Terre Haute, Indiana. Sam Thompson, Danville, Indiana. Now, Sam Thompson he was born in Danville, Indiana, but he moved away kind of quick, so that's kind of cheating. But, hey, he was born Hoosier. We got to put him in. And then Mordecai Three Fingers Brown, born in Niceville, Indiana. That's over by Rockville on the west side. Like if you take 36 straight west out of Indianapolis, and just before you get to Rockville, turn right at the covered bridge, or what's it called there? Some kind of thing there, and you'll go up to Nice. What's that?
Billy Creek Village?
Yes, Billy Creek Village. Thank you. You turn north there. You turn right at Billy Creek Village, and you go up and keep on driving, and you'll see the Mordecai Brown Monument. Matter of fact, we got a short little video I did on our website. If you go to that media tab on baseballacrossindiana.com, I did a quick little tidbit on Mordecai, the monument. Now, that's not where he's buried, but they have a monument where he was born there. It's really neat. Gil Hodges there, I put Princeton, but that might actually be Petersburg. We'll see that again here. I think I put, matter of fact, while I'm mentioning this, who's keeping track of my errors? Because I make a few of them here. I think if I can keep it under 7, then at least I'm batting 300, but I'm going to make some errors in this show. Some of them are recorded and I didn't want to edit them out. So that's your National Baseball Hall of Fame. Let's talk about all-time MLB home run leaders. Who are they going to be? all-time Major League Baseball home run leaders from Indiana. There he is again, Gil Hodges. I put Petersburg, Indiana this time. Between, 50-50, I'm going to be right on one of them. Scott Rowland's there second with 316. Chuck Klein, we're going to hear his name here again a few times. 300 on the spot. Southport High School grad right there. They had Southport High School. Little known fact, Southport is one of the oldest high schools in Indiana. Cy Williams from Wadena, Indiana. And I believe Wadena, current residents of Wadena, Indiana, go to Benton Central High School. It's up there northwest of Lafayette near Sweet Lou there. Then, rounding out the people who have at least 200, Donnie Baseball's got 222. Of course, he's an Evansville Memorial grad. And Adam Lynn, we're going to hear both these guys' names here more, rounds out the people who have at least 200 home runs. And we're going through this kind of quick because we've got, got a lot going on in today's show. Current Major League Baseball home run leaders. Any takes on who number one is? Steve, who's number one, do you think?
I have no idea.
Any guesses?
Jump
3,
me.
2, nope. Kevin Kiermaier. We got him on an upcoming show too with 75, the Fort Wayne Lures grad. There's our boy Tucker Barnhart. Of course, I still got him in a Cincinnati hat there, Jeff. I'm never going to let go. He's a Tigers guy now, though. Of course, the Brownsburg grad. Drew Butera has 19, and then Mike Brasso and Josh Van Meter are both tied with 16, the Andrean High School grad and Norwell High School grad. That is the current Major League Baseball home run leaders. Let's go to the pitching side. This is all time, and it's in wins. Who has the most wins? Any guesses?
Tommy John.
Here we go. Tommy John. Steve guessed it. 288. No 300-game winners from Indiana. I thought that was interesting. Amos Russi. Now, one of these guys is the Hoosier Thunderbolt? Steve, who's the Hoosier Thunderbolt?
That's Amos Russi.
That's what I thought. Amos Russi, the Hoosier Thunderbolt from
Played,
Mooresville, Indiana.
Most of his career, like before 1900.
Yeah. A lot of these guys. Yeah, you can see that, this is before they had an opener and a middle reliever and everything else. And these guys would pitch, 300 pitches a game and then pitch 3 days later the same. So, yeah, this was a different era as far as these wins. So let's look at current MLB pitching leaders. I think you guys probably know who's number one here. We got Lance Lynn, the Bulldog from Brownsburg with 115. Kyle Gibson from Greenfield Central with 79. Tommy Hunter, 56 from Cathedral. Sean Manaea, we're going to have him on the show here in a minute, from Valpo. And, of course, he went to South Central, the Union Mills variety for 3 years, then graduated from Andrean. Then Zach Plesac with 22. These guys got a future, though. Zach Plesac's pretty young with 22 wins already. So that is our just a kind of a quick snapshot. As I promised these guys that I would talk less, and we want to leave time to talk about these profiles. So now that gets us to our all-time All-Indiana lineup. And this is one where I've got a lot of feedback on. Everybody's looking forward to this one. With the Hall of Fame voting, there was a lot of controversy, I guess you could say. I don't know if it's controversy this year, but because you had Big Papi make it in, but some of the others didn't. And you've got a lot of controversy, and then the people vote. A lot of people say, well, you've got the wrong people voting for it. You don't have players voting to see who gets in. Well, we got rid of that. So we brought in Sean Manaea, the current ace for the Oakland A's. Like I said earlier, he was went 3 years to South Central Union Mills. Then he graduated from Andrean High School. And then we got Jarrod Parker, a retired Oakland A's pitcher from Norwell or Fort Wayne Lures. Which one is it, Mark?
He's from Norwell.
Norwell. We got both of them, and they are going to give their all-time All-Indiana starting lineup. Here it is. So we're talking draft. Let's do a mock draft here. We got two pitchers with us, so we're going to start with pitchers. We'll go back and forth, so there's no home team, visitors team. We'll start with pitchers, and let's bring it back out to California, where Sean's at right now. You're looking at these pitchers right here. We got, Tommy John, of course. You know, I've always said the two most famous people in the last 50 years of baseball were Tommy John's doctor and Jose Canseco's dealer. So, you know, but looking at that, Tommy John right there, pretty popular, 288 career wins, and we go all the way down. You know, so Sean, if you're starting a team from historical players in Indiana, who you gonna put on the bump?
I mean, I guess it's hard not to pick Tommy John. I mean, the man did it. So yeah, let's go him.
The man with the golden elbow, Tommy John, Sean Manaea goes with. Yep. Let's bring it over to you, Jarrod. You got to match Tommy John, so who are you going to go with?
I thought that was going to be I got Tommy John by default for having the most Tommy Johns. That was kind of like we didn't talk about that before the draft.
Damn.
But, shoot, I'm going to go with Lance, man. I got to go with Lance Lynn just because Lance is, you know, played with my brother with the Bulls, knowing, you know, Lance is just a competitor now with the Sox. He's fun to watch. You know, I like his intensity and the effort Lance brings.
Well, no argument there. Well, let's just keep it at you. We're going to pick two pitchers. You know, you've got Lance starting out the game. Now, this is old school baseball. We don't have middle relievers and openers and everything like that. Lance has got to go at least 7 innings. Who are you going to close it out with, Jarrod? We'll just keep it with you there.
Man, if I can, I get let me take Samardzija. Let me take Jeff Samardzija just because I know there's something in there, 2 innings that's never going to be hit by anybody.
Well, he's got that a little bit of crazy that you want in the closer, right?
Yes, sir. Go run some patterns and throw the ball as hard as you can.
Sean, what about you? Who are you going to close out the game here?
I'm going to go LaTroy Hawkins.
Oh, yeah. You know, little known fact about LaTroy Hawkins right there. He is 10th all time in appearances by a pitcher, and 9th is another pitcher from Indiana. Dan Plesac. Dan Plesac was 9th all time. Wow. Yeah. 9th and 10th all time in appearances by a pitcher are a couple native Hoosiers right there. Let's go over to fielders, and let's start with who's going to catch these guys. And Sean, we'll keep it at you. Here's our list of catchers. We have 2 current catchers still in the league. You got Tucker Barnhart, and you know, you pick him, you can break up that Lynn Barnhart connection there. Then you got Drew Butera is another catcher still in the league here with us. So who you got to get catching these Tommy John and LaTroy Hawkins?
I'll say Butera, only because we played blackjack one time. And he was a cool dude. So let's go with him.
Goes with Evansville's Drew Butera. So we bring it over to Jarrod. And Jarrod, you going to make a Brownsburg connection there, or are you going to break up the?
No, I cannot pass on Fegley. I cannot pass on Fegs. I'm surprised Manaea gave it to me. So thank you.
I'll tell you what, that's a good group of catchers right there. If you look at it, you know, Tucker Barnhart, Drew Butera, Josh Fegley, Terre Haute kid, J.D. Closser, you know, he's still in the coaching in the Yankees organization, I think it is. Brian Dorsett, you know, he was a catcher where you were there, Sean, at ISU. Good career there, too. Yeah. A lot of great catchers there in the mix. Let's keep going around the horn here. Let's go to first base. This is you've got Hall of Famer Gil Hodges right there. You've got Don Mattingly, Adam Lind. I mean, this is a strong crop of first basemen too. I don't know who we leave off with. Josh, we'll bring it back to you. Who you got at first base there?
And you can give me Gil Hodges. I can't pass on a Hall of Famer. You can have Donnie, but that's you don't give away the Hall of Fame guys.
Yeah, I think that's and Sean, I don't want to speak for you here, but
nah, definitely Don.
Donnie Baseball at first base right there. Let's go over to second base. Man, what a lineup! I tell you what, I'd like to compare this lineup with other states. You know, we've got a pretty good chance here. You know, going over to second base, you've got another Hall of Famer there, and you've got a Norwell grad that's still active. I've got him at second base. Everybody knows that Van Meter plays a lot of positions, but we've got him at second base on this. Sean, we'll bring it back to you. Who's at second base there from Indiana?
Craig Counsell.
Yeah, well, you got to go with Coach Counsell there, Notre Dame guy, and still with the. And tell me if I'm wrong here. He is still with the Brewers. I'm hoping the minute I say that, it's they changed things, and I look bad on today's date. He's still with the Brewers, and Jarrod. I don't want to speak for you here, but I got a feeling I know who you're going to pick.
Give me the Norwell guy. Let's go.
I'd be kind of disappointed if you didn't go that way.
Yeah, no doubt.
A Hall of Famer. A Hall of Famer gets passed up at second base. Wow, poor Mr. Herman there.
I needed a little background on what he's bringing to the table. He seems a little old for what I'm trying to do with my squad.
You think he'll know what the shift is? He stopped his career in 1947. I don't think he'll know what the shift is. Let's go over to shortstop, and no Hall of Famers and no no current players. You've got some Indiana Baseball Hall of Famers there. Clint Barnes got into the Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame just a couple years ago, and Bobby Sturgeon. Bobby Sturgeon's from my hometown, actually. He only played 6 years. You got a Logansport guy there and Red Corbin, some big name teams. I mean, you got a South Bend guy, an Indianapolis guy. You got a region guy there and Darrell Cheney. But no Fort Wayne. Well, you get, no Fort Wayne area guys. I guess Logansport's relatively close. Jarrod, who you got at shortstop here?
Give me Clint Barnes, just because I've seen him play and I loved watching his defense at short was unreal. Just seeing him pick it.
Born in Vincennes.
An Indiana State boy.
Yeah,
yes,
another Indiana Baseball Hall of Famer there. Sean, let's bring it to you. Who do you got at shortstop here?
Darrell Cheney.
Darrell Cheney, good pick. Well, you got to go with a region guy for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's keep it to you as we go over to third base. I know I'm doing the positions out of order here. Let's go over to third base and see who we got. You've got Scott Rowland right there. Pinky May going all the way back to 1933, and then a few people that I don't really know much about. You got some Fort Wayne guys there, though. I don't see any region guys, but Sean, let's keep it to you. Who's fielding the bunt at third base for you? Because this is old school. They're still bunting.
The pitchers are still here, so at least right now. So let's go Scott Rowland.
Yeah, that's a good pick. No argument there, and I'm sure
that's a great call.
Yeah, Jarrod, who are you going with here? You got the Scott Rowland out of the picture now. He just left IU. They got a good thing going on there with the E5 baseball that he started out there. A good organization. Who you going with at third base?
Yes, sir. I'm gonna take Jeff King. I'm not gonna know much about him, but I think he's gonna bring a lot to the table.
Well, you can't go wrong with the King. He passes up a couple Fort Wayne guys from near where he's from there. We're still going around the horn now. We're not going to differentiate between left field, right field, and center. Let's just pick straight up outfielders. You've got Oscar Charleston, Negro Leagues player, arguably one of the top baseball players in history right there. You've got Max Carey from the Hall of Fame. Sam Rice is in the Hall of Fame. Ed Roush, Chuck Klein, Sam Thompson. He's got a great nickname, too. You got some current players in there, too. You got Kevin Kiermaier. This lineup just keeps on going and keeps on going. So, Kenny Lofton right there. So, Jarrod, you got the first pick of the outfielders. I'm going to give you one pick, then give Sean two, and we'll go back and forth for the last pick outfielder. So go ahead and pick one, Jarrod. Who are you starting out with?
Man, that's a tough call right there. We'll bring some age and wisdom to our team and go with Max Carey. We need some salty guys here to rein
well-known player
and a few of those other cats. Yeah.
A Hall of Famer. Sean, let's bring it over to you. I want to have you pick two outfielders there. We got one Hall of Famer taken right there, but we got a whole bunch of them left.
All right, I'm gonna take Sam Rice and Kenny Lofton.
Good choice right there. I tell you, I was thinking that, if you're talking modern, you're talking speed. Of course, Sam Thompson was known for his speed. Kevin Kiermaier still not there, a defensive specialist right there. But Kenny Lofton, I knew that one would go quick. Let's bring it back to you, Jarrod, and go ahead and pick your final two outfielders for your all-time lineup.
Scanning through here. How about Cy Williams for some pop? I see he's got some big power numbers. And then I'm going to take Kevin Kiermaier because Fort Wayne. I'm pretty sure Kiermaier's brother hit me in the back with a pitch in a regional game on purpose, but I'll have to ask him about it.
So your outfield, Max Carey, Cy Williams, and you got a current player, Kevin Kiermaier there, one Hall of Famer, one slugger, and one current player. Sean, you got one left. You've got one Hall of Famer, and you got one guy that it should be in the Hall of Fame, in Kitty Lofton. Who's your final outfielder?
I'm going to have to go Chuck Klein.
Chuck Klein, another slugger, 300 home runs, 320 lifetime batting average. Wow, what a lineup.
Wow. Yeah.
We got to get a DH in here. Who'd we leave off with? We left off with you, Sean. We'll just go back to Sean here. Who's your DH? You guys are two AL guys, so we can go with a DH. Who are you going to put in the lineup there to replace Tommy John and LaTroy Hawkins at DH?
Yeah, we're going to have to go with Adam Lind.
Adam Lind. A solid pick right there. Passing up some more Hall of Famers, the relatively young guys to the lineup here. Jarrod, it's your last chance to get some runs on the board with a DH here. Who are you going with?
I took Jeff King earlier, so I'll take Oscar Charleston here.
I was waiting for him to get picked. That is the icing on the cake right there. That is a solid pick. Of course, the Oscar Charlton is also the name of the Indianapolis charter of the Sabre. Just a well-known player right there. I'm in the Hall of Fame. No one's more deserving. Let's go to the managers. You've got a lineup here of people. There's probably some egos in this lineup. You know, who are you going to have that's going to be able to rein in this lineup right here? You know, you're looking at two current managers, Donnie Baseball and Craig Counsell. But then you got some Hall of Famers there too. Some of them have already been picked from the player side. You know, Mordecai Brown hasn't been picked. That was thought he might have been picked from Mordecai Three Fingers Brown there going back in the day. But who's going to keep this lineup in line for you? Let's go back to you, Jarrod.
Give me Wedgie. Give me the Fort Wayne guy. Give me Eric Wedge.
Wedge.
He'll go to bat for these boys.
Well, you know he's got a little bit of edge to Eric Wedge. He's a stat. He's got 33 ejections. So I think he'll be able to handle the attitudes of the lineup there. Let's go over to you, Sean, and who's going to be your skipper for this crew?
Let's go double F. Freddie Fitzsimmons.
Freddie Fitz.
Freddie the Fitz.
The Mishawaka guy, 286 career wins, only one ejection. So I don't know if he'll be able to handle this crew or not. Let's
three active manager players. We got a couple player managers on Sean's team.
Right, exactly. See, so Freddie, who is going to? You've got the managers here that are going to tell Donnie Baseball what to do. That's just kind of funny, guys. I really appreciate it. What a lineup! We're having a lot of fun here. I appreciate you guys' time, and I wish you the best. And we know things are going to come around. We're recording this on Sean Manaea's birthday, February 1st. Is that right, Sean?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Happy birthday, big guy.
Happy birthday.
Enjoy it.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Guys, I appreciate you joining us as we keep going to talk about the best that ever did it from the state of Indiana. Wow. How fun was that? I'll tell you what. You could tell her when we well, first of all, how cool was it that Sean Manaea jumped in with us on his birthday? You know, him and Jarrod, couple A's that we had on the show. Man, that was fun. You know, if we go back to the beginning, when we did Around the Horn, what'd you do this week? Well, we talked to Sean Manaea and Jarrod Parker and Kevin Kiermaier and all kinds. I think that was a pretty good list. Let me ask you guys real quick, though. You saw their list. Before we start going into our profiles, are there any from that list that these two guys, the throwing Samoan Jarrod Manaea or Sean Manaea, there's error number 5, by the way, if you're keeping track, and Jarrod, not Josh Parker, any of them that they picked or any of them that they didn't pick that would be on your list?
I think the only one that wasn't on the list that we forgot about was Rob Bowen.
Tell us about him real quick.
Rob was a 1999 grad from Homestead High School. He was committed to go to LSU, and the Twins drafted him in the second round. And he went on and had I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he had a pretty stellar career as a backup catcher.
When was he drafted again?
1999, second round.
99, second round. Nice.
Yeah, right
Steve?
after the year after.
Steve, Jeff, Chris, any others that you'd put on the list?
I don't think so. They did a pretty good job.
Pretty good.
Considering how young those guys are.
Yeah. Yeah.
One
Exactly.
of them's 33 and another's 30. So, and they picked some old guys. So
They
did a
did.
pretty good job.
You know, some of
I
the
thought- I noticed the animal cameos in that video. You may not have heard it on that playback, but there was a dog barking in Jarrod's room, and you could hear the birds tweeting in Northern California. Maybe,
Yes.
maybe I'm going to pick up on that.
No, I did. You know, when I was
You
watching
don't
it,
hear
and
the
I,
birds tweeting around here in the middle of the winters.
I did have to cut a lot of that out just to keep it to 15 minutes. Because, I mean, our recording, you guys were on the show. Our recording went like 35 minutes. And I think I told him it would take like 10, but that's, hardy standard time that I think Chris came up with. But so that's our all-time, all-Indiana lineups by Sean Manaea and Jarrod Parker. So moving on. This is the part we're going to have fun with this. I'll tell you what, I'm excited about it. I'm excited to get to my players, but I want to hear what you guys have to say about yours too. And this is the point where I get to shut up a little bit. And if I could hear the applause from people watching this online right now, I'm sure it would be prolific. I know Mark's already clapping. So first up, we got a list. We each got 3, and I've got a bonus one at the end. And it's about this hat right here, but we're going to get to that at the end. We got about 30 minutes left to go. Perfect timing. We're actually going to keep this under an hour because you guys know how hard that is for me. Our first up is Steve Craw. Steve, who's the first profile that you're going to talk about here?
Lou Krieger.
Tell us about Lou.
Elkhart, Indiana born Lou Krieger. It rhymes with trigger. Was considered one of the best catchers of his time. Born in 1872, he played 16 major league seasons, beginning in 1896. The Pepper Pot backstop played for the Elkhart Lakeviews, Elkhart Truce, and Vandalia, Michigan club, beginning his professional career in 1895 with the Kalamazoo Zulus. He began the 1896 season for the Fort Wayne Farmers, and he played alongside future Hall of Famer Elmer Flick and future well-known author Zane Grey.
Wait, Elmer Flick?
Elmer Flick, who's in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and Zane Grey, who's the Western novelist, were on that team.
I love old names. Go ahead.
Yeah. And he made his National League debut with the Cleveland Spiders on September 21st, 1896.
Nice.
It was 1897 that Krieger began his 12-year association with Cy Young. Young loved throwing to Krieger. Young posted 283 of his 511 victories from 1897 to 1908, many of those with Lou as his battery mate. In 1903, Krieger caught the first pitch thrown in the modern World Series.
Huh.
That was when he was with Boston. That same season, he led the circuit in games caught, 96 of the 138 that the Boston Americans at the time played, had 10 double plays, and his total fielding chances were 661. Krieger and the Boston team visited Elkhart for an exhibition game on June 17th, 1904. That game was against George Cuppy's Colts. Judge James S. Dodge, on behalf of the citizens of Elkhart, presented Krieger with a fine diamond pin. Young tossed 4 no-hit innings, then gave way to former Notre Dame hurler Norwood Gibson, who gave up 1 hit. Gibson ended up pitching in the big leagues too. Krieger scored twice, and The crowd of 2,000, 1,700 of those paid, witnessed a 1-0 win by Boston. 100 years to the day of his last game in 1912, a monument was placed in Elkhart to honor Krieger and his family. While his lifetime batting average was .221, Krieger was revered for his catching and throwing prowess. He received National Baseball Hall of Fame votes in 5 different years during the period 1936 to 46, the first decade of voting for Cooperstown. The Michiana Area Society for American Baseball Research, SABR chapter, is named for Lou Krieger. Krieger was inducted into the Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame in 2004.
That's 2 people, I think, on our list here. We're going to talk about that where the SABR chapter is named after one of the people we're going to talk about. You mentioned George Cuppy there, also in the Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame. Now, I think Cuppy's from Elkhart too, isn't he?
He ended up in Elkhart, and he became business partners with Krieger. They had a pool hall.
That's right.
He's from Logansport.
I knew he was from up in that area. Good coverage. I was just trying to, Steve, you're dropping some names and some dates there, man. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go back and listen to this myself again, just to make some notes. Let's go to Fort Wayne. And like I said at the beginning, we're going to go all across the board. We each have a different take. We didn't say any rules on picking people. We just said pick 3 people. And I love the way it turned out because we all picked different things. Steve starts off with a guy from the 19th century, and then we go to Mark and we go someone that's currently active right now. Mark, who are you going to tell us about?
Kip McWilliams. Kip McWilliams is next weekend will enter his 13th season as a head coach at Indiana Tech in Fort Wayne. And Kip has had a stellar career. He's a personal friend of mine. A lot of his assistants are friends of mine. Kip's overall record at Tech is 440 wins, 264 losses, and 2 ties. Indiana Tech is in the Wolverine Hoosier Athletic Conference, which is the WHAC, and they've been to the tournament. They've won it 10 times. They compete every year in the regional. I mean, they're a quality team. The one thing Kip does that really impresses me is every year his outside conference games are against really good teams. It's like he looks at the rankings, and that's how he does the scheduling. If you're ranked in the top 10, he wants to play you. He doesn't back down from anybody. And that's something that I think is outstanding, because I think that's the way you need to be when it comes to putting your schedule together. And if you're trying to win a conference, you play tough teams out of conference, and then you get into your conference and you can do some damage. So, to get things started out, I like to talk about college coaches in a positive way. We have 3 of them here in Fort Wayne, and I call it the NAI Trail down Highway 24. Indiana Tech is the furthest east, and I'll move west from there. But last season, the Warriors completed one of the best years in program history, repeating as WHAC regular season champions, claiming the WHAC tournament title, and advancing to the Avista NAI World Series for the first time since 2003. They won the Williamsburg bracket of the NAI Baseball National Championship opening round, including 2 wins over number 5 ranked University of the Cumberlands to finish the season 42-16-1. Okay, pretty impressive season for a team out of the North. Shows a lot of character about his team and the way he prepares. They're intense. Like I said, they won't back down from anybody. Kip puts together a great coaching staff, dedicated players that, they just get after it. He gets players from all over the country. I think that the people listening you know, and hopefully this gets out to a lot of people, need to understand that the NAIA baseball is quality baseball, and it starts in this area. I mean, we have some really, really good teams in this area, and 3 of them I'm going to be talking about on the Indiana Highway 24 NAIA trail.
Well, I'll tell you, and that's why I said I'm glad you picked these 3. I know the 3 you picked here. And I tell you what, just to reiterate what Mark said, first of all, I absolutely love NAIA baseball. And, you know, the NAIA World Series, I think it's in Iowa every year, isn't it? Yeah.
It
It's
used to
It's
be
in Idaho.
Idaho.
Yeah.
Idaho.
Lewiston, Idaho.
That's right. That's right. And I just across the state, you know, like you said, you got 3 of them right there in the Fort Wayne area. Then, you know, you've got IU Southeast is NAIA, aren't they?
Yep.
Yeah, Coach Reel down there. And so we've got some of the best NAIA coaches in the country right here in Indiana.
Well, you can get off the 24 trail and go down to Taylor and Indiana Wesley. You know, those are all NAIA schools too.
Yep. And great programs in their own right. We're looking forward to hearing about the other 2 there, Mark. As we move along here, the next up, me. Who am I going to talk about? Well, I mentioned earlier that we have 2 people on our list here that are the namesake for the Society for American Baseball Research, Society for the Advancement of Baseball Research, SABR. Oscar Charleston, who I'm going to talk about, is the namesake for the Indianapolis chapter of SABR. You know, it's hard to fit, well, especially for me, it's hard to talk about anything, you know, and keep it under 2 minutes. But to talk about Oscar Charleston under 2 minutes is difficult because, well, let me give you some stats here. Let's start off with just some fun side notes. He started out as a bat boy for the Indianapolis ABCs when he was young. He was like 8 years old. Another interesting fact, it just tells you a little bit about his character and who he was, and that'll come into play here when we talk about another part of his life. But he lied about his age so that he could get into the Army 2 years early, and he ended up being in the military service with a lot of time in the Philippines between 1912 and 1915. Now, let's talk about the player, Oscar Charleston. First of all, he was compared to Ty Cobb in a couple different ways. One, his hitting ability. You know, Oscar Charleston, arguably, they say he was, and we'll get to this in a second, was better than Cobb. But number 2, and this is the kind of something he shares with Cobb from a couple different vantage points, and they compared him to Cobb by his attitude, his personality, but I think unfairly. But I also think Ty Cobb was identified or later historians gave Ty Cobb a bad rap. Now, both of them played baseball to an aggressive level that was, you know, uncharted. But that's why they got to be as good as they are. I'm getting a little bit of echo there. Is that coming from, who's that coming from? Maybe I'm just talking too loud. So Ty Cobb, everybody said, they said Ty Cobb was a racist. You know, if you go back to the video, the Ken Burns series on baseball, Ty Cobb was called a racist. He was called, you know, one of the worst, angriest, dirtiest players in the history of the game. Well, Oscar Charleston obviously was not called a racist, but he was called one of the dirtiest players that ever played the game, like Cobb. But later accounts have proved that both the accounts for Cobb and Charleston were both inaccurate to some degree. Oscar Charleston was also compared to Babe Ruth for his power. But let's talk about historical rankings from some people that, you know, you can really give credence to their opinion. And one particular is Bill James. The name Bill James should ring a bell for modern baseball fans. He's the Moneyball guy. He's the sabermetrics guy. He wrote the book on Moneyball. He wrote the book on all of these advanced modern statistical ways to evaluate players. He literally wrote the book. And he said, this is Bill James, ranks Oscar Charleston as the 4th best player of all time. And then a quote from Bill James regarding, and I quote, regarding Oscar Charleston, by many knowledgeable people as the greatest who ever played. And that's Bill James saying that in his circle of baseball statisticians and baseball writers, that many, he ranked him fourth, but many in his circle noted him as the greatest who ever played. Buck O'Neil, a fellow Hall of Famer from the Negro Leagues, claimed that Oscar Charleston was better than Willie Mays. And here's another one. Right around the turn of the century, right around 2000, there was a poll, and they surveyed 24 Negro League historians. Oscar Charleston got the most votes for the greatest Negro League player who ever played. So we're talking, you know, everybody hears the name Satchel Paige and things like that. Oscar Charleston, higher than him. Another interesting fact, just to, you know, more stamp on his legacy. Now there's some debate on this, but he was the first black man to be a Major League Baseball scout. There's some debate on this, obviously. But the reason so is he was hired by Branch Rickey when Branch Rickey started to, when he made the decision that I'm going to bring in a black baseball player in a Major League Baseball. This is before he got on board with Jackie Robinson. He hired Oscar Charleston to be a scout. That's a little known fact. And, you know, he scouted some of the best. Matter of fact, he was responsible for the Dodgers signing Roy Campanella. So, you know, the legacy of Oscar Charleston, here's the stamp, and here's the part I'll close with on this. And like I said, we could talk about this guy. There's been books and, you know, so much documentation on this guy. If you're watching this show, and if you're a younger fella and you've never heard of Oscar Charleston, look him up. Whether you think he's the best of all time or not, people throughout history put him in at least the top 5 who ever played the game. Inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame back in 78, I believe. He died young, though. He died in his 40s, so, you know, he didn't have a lot of life after baseball, so, you know, he didn't really get to PR himself. Sad story that, you know, this is kind of a soapbox of mine. I look back and I think that I can't imagine not being able to play baseball because of the color of my skin, and especially because Oscar Charleston, one of the greatest who ever played the game, and very few people know about him because of the color of his skin. So that's my person, Oscar Charleston. Like I said, sorry, I could go about that guy all day, but let's keep it moving here, and let's go to Sweet Lou in Lafayette. Lou, who are you going to start us out with?
Well, I'm going to start out with Tim Stoddard.
And this is a great pick, by the way. Here's another one not a lot of people know about, but this dude was a stud. Go ahead.
Tim Stoddard grew up in East Chicago. And, of course, that's kind of a rough part of the state. What Tim thought it was a great place to grow up. He played 3 sports at East Chicago. He was a quarterback for the football team, played basketball, and played baseball. During his 70-71 basketball season, the East Chicago Washington Senators went 29-0, and the basketball team did, and won the state championship here in Indiana. So there's one championship he's got under his belt. He went on to go to North Carolina State, Wolfpack, and in his sophomore year, NC State went undefeated. And during the Atlantic Coast Conference tournament game, he hit 2 free throws with 39 seconds to go in the game to win it against Maryland. But unfortunately, because of NCAA sanctions, the NCAA would not let the Wolfpack into the national tournament. So the next year, in order to get in the tournament, guess what? They had to play Maryland again, and they won 103-100 in overtime. And after advancing to the Final Four, NC State played in the semifinals that year against 7-time in a row champions, the UCLA Bruins and John Wooden. And the Wolfpack beat John Wooden that year and stopped the 7 straight years of national championships, 80-77 in double overtime. Tim Stoddard, he guarded Bill Walton, who was playing for the Bruins then. He scored 9 points before fouling out. And then the Wolfpack went on and defeated Al McGuire's Marquette team in the national championship game, 76-64. Getting back to Tim's baseball, in 73 and 74, the Wolfpack baseball team won the Atlantic Coast Conference baseball tourney. He pitched in both championship games, and then the White Sox selected him in the second round of the 75 draft. Tim made his major league debut at September 7th, 1975. He stayed in the minors till 77 when the White Sox ended up releasing him. And then he signed with the Baltimore Orioles in April of 77. That's when he got his trade name of Bigfoot. In 1979, he went 3-1 with an ERA of 1.71. He didn't appear in the championship series against the California Angels, but he did pitch 4 games in the World Series against the Pirates and even got a base hit his first major league at bat. And then he went on later on. I'm not going to, he had quite a career, but he went on, got a World Series ring in 1983 with the Orioles. And then in 86, he was with the San Diego Padres, and his last major league at bat, he hit a home run off Mike Lacoste. He did pitch or became pitching coach at Northwestern in 1995, and he's now retired. But gentlemen, I think he's one of the all-time great athletes to ever come out of the state of Indiana. When you've got a ring for the World Series in Major League Baseball, when you've got a ring for the NCAA basketball tourney, and you got a ring for the Indiana High School Athletic Association basketball, I'm telling you, you have got, really got some rings on your finger. Quite a guy.
Well, I'll tell you, and I know we got a theme going from you this week, Jeff, on these multi-sport athletes, and I absolutely love it. That's why I'm glad you picked this guy. Just a kind of a lesser known from Indiana, but not for any good reason. I mean, this guy had it going on. So good call there on picking Tim Stoddard. Let's move along to Papa Beach up there in Wabash. And I like where you're going with this too. This is what I said at the beginning. We're all coming at this from different angles. So Chris, take yourself off mute there, and who are we going to go with as your first profile?
My first profile is going to be Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame coach Chrisrood. Chrisrood was Pearston High School graduate, and Pearston no longer exists. Pearston is now part of the Whitco school system. Chris graduated Pearston High School, went on to play at Taylor University. While at Taylor, he was part of 3 conference champions, played middle infield, but also had a broad knowledge of all defensive positions. Chris played on 4 college conference championship teams. His senior year, he helped Taylor to 5th place in the NAIA World Series. After graduating from Taylor in 1970, he began coaching in the Wabash Babe Ruth Baseball Association. The following year, he became assistant head coach at Wabash High School, and then became the head coach the following year. The early years spent coaching at high school, he played at a local city park because Wabash High School did not yet have a field. And a little known fact, the current Wabash High School field, which is named after Chrisrood, was partially paid for by George Steinbrenner. The athletic director at the time at Wabash High School was a classmate of George Steinbrenner's at Culver Military. So when it was time to put in a baseball field at Wabash High School, the AD reached out to Steinbrenner, who sent a check to Wabash High School that helped pay for the current field at Wabash High School. The current field at Wabash High School used to be wooded, completely wooded, and George helped to remove the woods and put in place the baseball field.
Well, I've said it in the
Then-
past. That's money well spent too, because what a field.
Yeah. So Chris built a legacy with gritty, tough, blue-collar kids here at Wabash. In 20 years of coaching, he compiled a 411 wins against 211 losses, which is he averaged 20 wins a year for 20 years at Wabash High School.
Man.
During that time, like Mark said, Wabash was a smaller school, but played Kokomo, played Logansport, played Warsaw, played Fort Wayne Northrop, played Huntington North, played Marion, all in non-conference games. So he wanted to play whoever was willing to play him, who was good. Chris went on to win 13 conference championships, 4 sectionals, 1 regional, 1 semi-state, and of course the 1986 state championship, going 31-6.
Wow.
When baseball was still a one-class tournament. He was not much for individual honors, but won several county CIC coaching awards through the years. He also served as a vice president of the Indiana Baseball Coaches Association at the time of his death, which ironically happened on the first day of baseball practice in 1996.
Wow.
Coach Ruud was posthumously inducted into the Indiana Baseball Coaches Hall of Fame Indiana Hall of Fame in 1996. Upon his death, former Huntington North coach Don Sherman, who was a longtime friend, said he got those kids playing at levels they didn't know they could play themselves. Sherman also said he did lots of things for kids that many people didn't know about. And Sherman often asked him why he didn't use his state championship at Wabash as a stepping stone to bigger jobs. And he simply said he loved it here. This was his home. And then another close friend, Chris Stavaretti, said that when Chris died, it just hit him hard. Chris and him went back 20 years. They used to share rooms at coaching clinics. He also referred to Chris as a stand-up comic. Chris's poker skills are also legendary. But just an all-around great guy. And for a small school like Wabash, Chris coached 3 Major League Baseball draft picks.
Wow.
Stan Leland, Keith Shepard, Donnie Blair.
Wow.
And then along with numerous D1, D2, D3 NAIA guys through the years. So my first pick is Chrisrood.
And a good one too. Of all the awards and accolades that he's got, I love, and this is why I'm a fan of high school coaches, is exactly what you said about this guy, what he did behind the scenes, what he did that people like me, not from Wabash, will never know about, but his commitment to the kids above everything else. Good call there on your first profile. We've been through round 1. Let's bring it back to Captain Craw for your second profile. Steve, who you going with?
Jim Reinbold.
Jim Reinbold, another legendary coach. There he is from South Bend. Talk to us about Coach Reinbold, number 1.
Started off with a question. Are you a rock or a sponge? Those are words Jim Reinbold used with countless baseball players. He wanted them to be receptive to knowledge and looking for more. He dished out many of those lessons in his many decades as a coach. Reinbold died in 2017 at 87. A 1948 Woodrow Wilson graduate, Reinbold was one of the first inducted into the first Hall of Fame class of the Indiana High School Baseball Coaches Association in 1979. That's an organization he helped found in 71. A native of South Bend, Indiana, he coached high schoolers at Green Township, which starting in 1954. He was in Bay City, Michigan, Handy High School in Bay City, Michigan, and then for a short time, and then he was at South Bend Clay. Altogether, he won 646 games. The 1970 Clay Colonials won the state title. They went 39-3, and they had a 33-game win streak.
Jeez.
It was also in 71 that he was a manager in the Oakland A's system. And he went on to be a coach for the South Bend White Sox and the South Bend Silverhawks. Here's a story that he told me. Lucky enough that I knew this gentleman. He was at Coos Bay, Oregon, Coos Bay, North Bend, Oregon in 1971. That's a short season team for the A's. That's along the Pacific Ocean, Oregon. Can't get there except with a plane. And the club got hand-me-downs, and they had to turn the pants inside out and resew them because Charlie Finley was notorious for that. He called up needing baseballs one time, called up the Oakland office. Charlie Finley picked up the phone, and he had to go to a local sporting goods store to get the baseballs. They didn't have any baseballs to send them from Oakland. In 1993, Jim and son Joel, who is the current coach at South Bend Clay, they started the Jim Reinbold Fall Baseball Camp.
Mm-hmm.
Players come from all around northern Indiana and southern Indiana, and southern Michigan, I should say. Northern Indiana, southern Michigan. Rob Bowen is an alumnus. I mentioned Rob earlier. Jim Reinbold lettered in baseball and basketball at Mississippi College, where he graduated in 1952 before entering the U.S. Army during the Korean conflict. He got his master's degree at the University of Notre Dame.
Wow, just a legend right there for sure. And tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think it was Reinbold and Schreiber and from LaPorte and Spider Fields were part of that crew of three legendary high school coaches from Indiana that were
there's some of the guys at the beginning. There was like 3 or 4 of them that got together in LaPorte on a Sunday, and then a little later on they went to Carmel. There were 16 of them, and that's really where they founded the organization.
Right. That's what I thought.
Yep. And Reinbold were there at the start.
2 coaches in a row, and I think we got another one coming up here as we pass things over to Mark. We're going back to Fort Wayne, and he was talking about that NAIA corridor there. Who's your next coach in line here, Coach De La Garza?
Dustin Butcher.
University of St. Francis. Tell us about Coach Butcher.
He's, I think he's in his 3rd or 4th year. He started out in 2018 after the season ended. He took over for retired Greg Roberts, and he's brought a whole different look to St. Francis baseball. St. Francis baseball has had to compete with St. Francis football, number one, and then St. Francis basketball forever because those guys have had it going on for a while. And Butch has been, kind of behind the 8 ball trying to keep up with those guys. But, from what I've seen, he's doing it. He's getting it done. He's recruiting good players. He's having success doing what he does, and he loves it. He has passion for it. I see him a lot. I consider him a personal friend. The St. Francis is part of the Crossroads League along with Huntington University. And although they haven't had the success that Indiana Tech has, I think down the roads with Butch in charge, they're going to be really good. He brought in a good class this year. He's on the recruiting trail hard every year. If you get out into summer baseball, God, you see him everywhere. And he just does a really nice job. I respect what he's doing. He took over a tough situation because it wasn't going well. The field wasn't nice. Now it's getting better. They didn't take the players didn't take baseball seriously, and now they're getting better. So he's kind of taken a so-so program into a really good program right now. One that I'm really proud to say is in Fort Wayne, and they're on that NAIA trail too, right in the middle of Fort Wayne on 24. So they get a lot of traffic. The other thing I wanted to mention when we were talking about NAIA schools, you can go to a game for free. You can walk in and just sit down and you can see really good baseball. And, prior to 2018, I wouldn't have led a lot of players to go watch a St. Francis game. But now, he's got the ship righted. It's taken a few years, but I give him a lot of credit. They're actually right now on their way home from Bethel, Tennessee. They played a doubleheader today against Bethel, and they're 2-0 right now. They had a great start and a great performance from a kid named Alex Brunson, former DeKalb High School player. He was like 7 for 10 for the day.
Jeez.
And scored a couple runs and hit a bomb. So they're off to a good start. I'm happy for Coach Butcher. I'm glad he's got things going on. You know, it helps me because one of the things I'm trying to do is get players to go to college. And I'll be honest with you, Butch and St. Francis, they have a lot of creative ways to get a kid some not scholarship money, but financial aid.
Mm-hmm.
So that, you know, that's where I'm at. Either he's new, it's not a lot of history. They've never had a prolific season like Tech or even Huntington University, but they're on the right track, and I'm happy for the guy, and I'm proud of what he's done, and he deserves this attention.
Well, I agree with that completely. You said it best right there when you wrapped it up. Because first of all, I've met him a couple times. Just a great man. You know, parents watching this. First of all, NAIA is a high level of baseball. Don't let anybody tell you any different. And they play a ton of games. NAIA does. And you know, you send a kid under the tutelage of Coach Butcher here, and you're not going wrong. And also, look at the guns on that dude. I'd like to ask him what he bench presses right there. He's got some guns for a young man. Moving on here. What's that, Coach? Moving on. It's my turn. Who's next? I've got another obscure name here I'm going to throw out at you. His name's Bert Shepard. I don't know if even anybody on this panel has heard of Bert Shepard. Unless you've been at baseballacrossindiana.com and go to that media tab. I got a little video, a little 2-minute snippet on there, but I'm not really going to cover anything on that I don't cover right here, right now. Bert Shepard pitched, I think, 2 1/3 innings, and that is his Major League Baseball career. So why am I bringing him up as a significant piece of history in baseball across Indiana? Well, let's do a little timeline here. He was born around 1919. I think it might have been 1920. And fast forward to 1943, and he was drafted, but not in baseball. He was drafted by the U.S. military, and he went over to the Great War, and he was a P3. He flew P3. I think it's P3 bombers. I think they're called. And on the video, I give a little bit more specifics on our website. And his plane crashed. So he goes down. He crashed, but he lived. But he lost a leg. If you see that photo right there, you'll see that he's got a artificial leg. So now he was a great baseball player, and he had a chance of going pro before he went into the military. And this is and if you look at that time frame, this is a story that is true across the country. The number of men that we lost that could have had great careers in the pros is uncountable. But this guy, what he did, he was good enough to pitch batting practice for the Washington Senators throughout the year. Well, they had a big game coming up, but a game that didn't really mean much. So in the middle of the game, they let Bert Shepard go in, and he pitched 2 1/3 inning, and then he was done. I think they got 1 hit off of him. But before I tell you the significant part, which you could probably guess, but there were people. I mean, he pitched against some of the greatest of that era, and he would have pitched all the time. But their coach said, "We're not going to let you pitch because you can't field a bunt with the artificial leg." That's the only reason they wouldn't let him pitch, because he was good enough. But those 2 1/3 innings he pitched still makes him today the only pitcher in Major League Baseball history who pitched on an artificial leg. So just an interesting note, and that's why I added Bert Shepard in today's player profile history. So let's keep things moving. Let's go back to Lafayette and Sweet Lou. Lou, you got a trend here of multi-sport athletes. Are we continuing that theme? Who you got?
Well, I'm not sure I remember who's on the list, but
There's next.
We go to Clayton Richard.
Yep, that's who we got next.
The reason I'm going to Clayton Richard is because I'm going to be working for Clayton Richard this spring as a sports information director. Clayton was named head baseball coach of the Lafayette Jeff Broncos. And so that's why I chose him. Really soft-spoken guy, and just a brief history of Clayton Richard. Of course, he graduated from McCutcheon here in Tippecanoe County. And in 2002 and 2003 school year, the fall, he was a quarterback of the McCutcheon Mavericks. He got Mr. Football. And in 2003, he was playing for Jake Burton, and he got Mr. Baseball in the same year. I don't know any other athlete that's got that notoriety. And then went on to a major league career. He did get play a little quarterback for the Michigan Wolverines, but unfortunately his baseball ended up. That's where he ended up going, and played for several teams. His breakout season was with the Padres. He had 33 starts. His overall career record's not, nothing to write home about. He did win 69 and lost 84, had a ERA of 4.51. But one of the interesting things about him is in April 11th, 2018, he made a rare appearance as a pinch hitter and singled off Chris Stratton of the San Francisco Giants in the third inning. He was batting for Brian Mitchell and then gave way to Jordan Lyles on the mound. It turned out that his hit was the only hit of the game for the Padres, and Stratton, reliever Derek Law, combined on a one-hitter. According to Eli Sports Bureau, it is the first time in history that a pinch-hitting pitcher have recorded his team's only hit. So he's got a major league record under his belt.
Nice.
Just a great, great guy, very soft-spoken, and that's why I chose Clayton Richard.
I love the obscure fact there you came out with. I love the little statistic there. Well done. Let's keep things moving here, and let's go back to Papa Beach. Chris, you got a big one here coming up. Talk to us about who your second profile is.
Well, my next two guys are both guys who took an unconventional path to the big leagues.
Love the story there.
Kenny Lofton. Kenny Lofton went to high school at East Chicago, Washington, like Jeff's previous pick. But he went to the University of Arizona to play basketball. Did not play baseball until he was a junior. But interesting fact, and you want little known facts, and this one blows my mind. He is one of only two players to ever play in the NCAA Final Four and in Major League Baseball. Can anyone guess who the other guy was?
Was it Stoddard? No.
It was Stoddard.
Yeah.
And they're both from the same high school.
Love it.
So how cool is that? Yeah. So
Nice.
So let me find where I'm at. I lost my place. In college, he left Arizona as the leader in career steals, a record which was eventually broken. And then as a junior, decided he wanted to try out for the baseball team, right? Why not? So in just 5 games, he recorded only one official at bat, but his speed and potential were recognized by baseball scouts, including the Astros' Clark Christ, who later drafted Lofton in the 17th round. Lofton went on to play summer baseball, or they drafted him, wanted him to play summer baseball, but he refused because he was going to stick to his commitment with the basketball program. Was drafted in the 17th round in 88. He went on to play, let me make sure I'm giving you the right info, 17 seasons in the big leagues with, I think, 11 different teams. Mm-hmm. But I picked Kenny, like I said, because he wasn't a baseball guy necessarily out of high school, but, baseball and pro sports in general are going to find ways to get talented athletes, and that's what Kenny Lofton was.
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, I love the tie-in with Stoddard there. That's fantastic. This is why I love the selection of people. Kenny Lofton, he kind of had an unorthodox swing, but he still had a decent career. You know, I said earlier that he, could be in the Hall of Fame. Okay, that's a stretch. That's a statement from Hardy the Hat Guy, the big fan here, that thinks everybody who ever played in Indiana should be in the.
He's got a .299 batting average.
Yeah. He batted .299. You know who else had an unorthodox swing? Rod Carew. So the reason I say that is you look at all the modern ways of evaluating kids. They look at his swing like that and they're like, it's too much work. But look what he did. He had a fantastic career. Great selection there. Let's keep things moving.
He also had 600 plus stolen bases, which is a thing of the past.
Yeah, and he was just a stud on the bases. Great selection. Am I going the right way here? Do I get we're back around to round 3. So we're back to Steve Craw. Steve, you got your last profile here. Who you going with?
Tommy John.
Tommy John. The maybe the only guy more famous was his doctor. Tell us about Tommy John.
Tommy John was born and raised in Terre Haute, Indiana. He learned to throw a curveball from his father's friend in Terre Haute, Arlie Andrews. Arlie Andrews had been a minor league pitcher in the Phillies system, and before that was a basketball star at Gerstmar High School. Ever heard of Arlie and Uncle Harold? Howard Sharp? That's that group. John himself was quite a basketball star for the Black Cats, and he also went 28-2 as a left-handed pitcher. In 1961, he signed with the Cleveland Indians, and he made his major league debut in 1963. That season, he made $6,500. Wow. He went on to pitch for the White Sox, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Angels, the Athletics, and then the Yankees again. When he left the mound the last time in 1989, his salary was $375,000. So look how that jumped. His 26-year career is second in duration only to Nolan Ryan and Cap Anson's 27.
Wow.
John pitched 15 years after Frank Joe performed the first Tommy John surgery. That's where he's well known, which is an older collateral ligament reconstruction. So essentially rebuilding your elbow ligament by taking the ligament from someplace else, putting it in your elbow. That was in 1974. In 76, he returned to the Dodgers. He started 31 games and he won 10. He was the National League Comeback Player of the Year by the Sporting News, and he won the Fred Hutchinson Award for Outstanding Character and Courage. John, a.k.a. the Bionic Man, he won 288 games, and 164 of those came after that surgery.
Wow.
All 3 of his 20-win seasons and 3 of his 4 All-Star game selections also came after that procedure. The 6 left-handers with more wins than TJ are Warren Spahn, 363, Steve Carlton, 329, Eddie Plank, 326, Tom Glavine, 305, Randy Johnson, 303, Lefty Grove, 300. All those guys are Hall of Famers.
Wow.
National Hall of Fame, Cooperstown. John's career ERA was 334 over 4,710 1/3 innings. He was inducted into the Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame in 1996.
Wow. I'll tell you what, that's we're throwing facts out here. We mentioned those 288 wins, which if you compare that to some of the old timers, it's not 300, but what did you say, the 6th highest wins for a left-hander all time? That's
well, it'd be 7. There's 6 left-handers ahead of him. All those guys are legendary names there.
Look at the scar on that picture right there. That's a $1 million scar right there, isn't it? So Tommy John, I used to play on Tommy John Field, the Babe Ruth Field back there in Terre Haute. So yeah, we're big fans of Tommy John. We can't have a historical show on baseball players in Indiana without mentioning Tommy John. Good call right there, Steve. Moving forward, let's go back to Coach. Is that right? Yeah, we're back to you with our 3rd coach in that NAIA corridor right there, and this is a good one. Who are you talking about now?
Mike Frank.
Head coach for Huntington University, the Foresters. Tell us about Coach Frame. This is another one where we could talk for a long time.
Yeah, Mike's another personal friend. All three of these guys are. I've known, out of the three, though, I've known Mike the longest. We go way back. Used to have a standing joke because every time I would try to schedule a game in the summer to play at Huntington University, it would rain. So the joke became when Mike needed rain on his field, he'd call me just because he knew he'd get rain if I showed up. I don't know what that says about the Christian background at Huntington University, but that was kind of our standing joke. Mike is entering his 38th season as a head coach at Huntington University. I know for a fact, I don't have the numbers, but Huntington University has recruited a lot of sluggers and given a lot of Summit City sluggers an opportunity to continue their education, get a degree, and move on. I mean, I look back at the Travis Franz, who went to Huntington and has a great deal of respect for Coach Frame, who's now an orthopedic surgeon. Coach Frame is just, he's just an outstanding guy. Anybody that knows him will tell you that. His son, Thad, is currently moving up the ranks. I don't know if Thad has nudged his dad out as head coach yet, but I think that's something in the makes. But they currently have raised enough money to redo their infield, put a turf field in. And if you've never been to Huntington University's field, it's the best kept secret in Indiana. It's a gorgeous setting. I don't know how they ever came up with it, but it turned out amazing. And now with the new infield, it's going to be great. And it's good to see that Coach Frame gets the credit for getting that done. You know, their biggest thing was they had to play so many of the beginning of the season games away from home because the way their field's set up, if it snowed, you weren't gonna get on it, and then the rain, it wasn't always all the rain off. So it was the move to get turf was huge and will allow them the opportunity to play more home games, which, I know the students aren't going to say much about this, but it allows you to keep your students in class longer too. So everything he does he does with the students and the players. They're number one, and Huntington University is definitely, his namesake, and he's done a great job. I look down, I'm sitting here scrolling down through the list of coaches he has, and I get to Shea Beecham, Chris's son, who I know Chris is proud of this. He's an assistant now at Huntington after having an outstanding career at Huntington. And he's one of those guys that, if it hadn't been for the relationship the Sluggers have with Huntington University, who knows where Shea would have ended up. But it was huge. And Mike's just a guy you got to love. I mean, he loves the game. He loves people. He loves his job. I mean, how do you not have anything good to say about Mike Frame? I mean, he's a personal friend, which I'm proud to say that. I mean, if I call Mike and I need a field at the last minute and he's not around, he'll find a way for someone to get me the keys to get in. He's just that kind of guy. He gets it, baseball is baseball, and he wants kids to play. He's a lot like me, and just a good guy. I mean, I think guys that have played for him could probably go deeper into that and really understand him. But I know Mike how I know him, and I would never hesitate to send a player to Huntington University.
Well, I'll tell you what, a lot of times we say, he's a good man, and sometimes it gets, possibly overused. But anybody that says otherwise about Mike Frame is just simply wrong, because he is.
I'll go one step further. Not only has he been there a long time, he's getting ready to hit 900 wins.
Yeah,
he's 3 or 4 wins away from 900. So not only has he been there a long time, his teams have played at a high level. for a very long time.
Consistently, right? That
Consistently.
So you add the fact of just how good of a man he is, and the kind of character that he's training these young student athletes to be good men of their own. But he knows baseball. Let's not leave that out or minimize that in any way, shape, or form. The guy knows baseball. And look at that facility, bucket seats behind home plate. Are you kidding me? For an NAIA field, that's just crazy. I absolutely love it.
That's all new. That's all within the last couple of years too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Part of the growth of that program, and I remember when that was just bleachers back there. So yeah, they've made great strides, and they're continuing.
Great call adding him on here, Mark. I'm just so glad you added those 3 NAIA coaches there from Fort Wayne. Just a great group of coaches that, we need to spread the gospel of how good these coaches are and how good their programs are and what the great opportunity it is for a student to be part of these programs. So moving on, we are up to me with my last profile. Now we're talking about Ford Frick from Waukesha, Indiana. Did I pronounce that right? I don't even know. But another member of the National Baseball Hall of Fame, but certainly not for his playing. His playing days are really not that documented because there's really not that much to talk about. So why are we bringing Ford Frick into the picture? Matter of fact, I'm surprised Steve Craw didn't pick this guy right here, because when I think of Ford Frick, I think of Steve Craw, and that's the same level of respect for sure there, Steve. But let's talk about Ford Frick and why we're bringing him into the picture here. Just a couple stats on him. He was born in 1894. He's a DePaul Tiger graduate. Some of the things he's known for, one of the most things he's known for is actually something he did not say. If you do some Googling on this, you'll find that he was the one that started the whole argument of Roger Maris should have an asterisk by his home run record because he had more games to get 61 than Babe Ruth had to get 60. He never said that. He never said that at all. And he always said it kind of frustrates him that was tagged to him, but he never said it. But the reason that was tagged to him was he was instrumental in his early days. He was a ghostwriter for Babe Ruth's newspaper, and then later Babe Ruth's own book of baseball. So they kind of tied it to him. One of the funny biggest failures, he said, and this is actually true, is at one point when he was baseball commissioner, we'll talk about that here in a minute, he tried to legalize the spitball. And he failed, of course, but and he also tried to get interleague play started, and he wasn't successful at that. That came later on. His sports media career, of course, this is pre-internet, with work, like I mentioned earlier, his work as a ghostwriter for Babe Ruth. And Steve, you could probably add some of these things to the air list if I'm making anything wrong here. But a big one is he pioneered. I mean, he was a pioneer in the daily radio sports report. Something that ESPN now and Major League Baseball Network and everything else, what we're doing right now. He was one of the pioneers for that early radio show that just gave a recap of the daily sports scene. And that was him. Some other big things, of course. He was the president of the National League Publicity Bureau from 1934 to 1951, and then became the commissioner of baseball from 1951 to 1965. Now, I'm going to talk about just some of his notoriety stats here, and I'll emphasize some other things along the way. But one of them is he was integral. Matter of fact, he was the guy that basically squashed a plot by the St. Louis Cardinals to start a league-wide strike on Jackie Robinson's first year. The St. Louis Cardinals were trying to start a whole league-wide strike because Jackie Robinson came in and they didn't want any part of it. Well, Ford Frick came in and said, I don't care if it hurts the league for 10 years, you will not do this. And he stopped it right there. I mentioned that because there was one point in history where Ford Frick kind of got a tag of of prolonging segregation in baseball, because there was a guy, I can't remember the guy's name, but he tried to purchase the Philadelphia Phillies, and he said, this is before Jackie Robinson, and he said that we're going to fill the Phillies roster with black players. And it was said that Ford Frick at the time said, basically squashed that by allowing the sale to a different person that wasn't going to do that. You know, Ford Frick denied that, and then things like what he did by squashing the St. Louis Cardinals plot to do a league-wide strike, I think goes to show that when the record is that he was instrumental in blocking things like that instead of allowing segregation things to continue. Some other neat facts about him: he created the 10 Commandments of umpires, which is still kind of referenced today. You can look that up. He was elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1970. I'm thinking that's 78. I might have got that wrong. Then the Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame in 1983. But most notably, the reason I brought him up, because this is why 1978. In 1978, the Hall of Fame created the Ford C. Frick Award, which still gets offered annually to this day, and it's given to the broadcaster for major contributions to the game. So right here from Indiana, the Ford C. Frick Award, namesake of our native Hoosier here, is given out every year. So we are a sports show. We're talking, that's what we do. We are in sports media, and he basically pioneered a lot of the things that we're doing today, just with higher technology. So as we talk about notable people throughout history from Indiana, we got to mention Ford Frick, and that's why I brought him into the show here. So let's move along. We're just about wrapping things up. Let's go to Sweet Lou. And I pulled it up here in front of you already. You're going to talk about a guy that I'm so glad you added to the mix here, Don Larson from Michigan City. Tell us a little bit about him.
Well, I'm learning something every week on this show, so I'm real excited about this guy. Of course, Don was born August 7th, 1929, as you see there in Michigan City. And kind of skipping a little bit regarding his minor leagues and stuff like that. He did play with the St. Louis Browns, but in 1951 he was drafted in the U.S. Army, and he spent 2 years in the Korean War in non-compact roles. And then he was 6'4", 215. His teammates gave him the nickname Goonie Bird. A writer said it was because of his protruding ears, pear-shaped body, and long dangling arms. And another writer said his nickname was bestowed because I guess he was pretty ornery. He made his major league debut on April 18th, 1953, in the first game of a doubleheader against the Detroit Tigers. And again, he was playing with the St. Louis Browns, and the Browns moved to Baltimore in 1954. That season, Larson led the league in losses with 21, while winning only 3 games. Now get this, but fortunately for him, his 2 wins he got that year were over the New York Yankees, and that manager was who? Yep, Casey Stengel, and Casey Stengel happened to remember those 2 wins. So Larson was traded in 1954 to the Yankees, and of course his notoriety is with the 1955 World Series. He pitched briefly in Game 2. He faced only 10 batters, but he was charged with 4 unearned runs, and the Brooklyn Dodgers won that slugfest. Then the series was moved to Yankee Stadium. The night before the game of Game 5, Larson went out and had a few beers with a sports writer. Before midnight, they headed back toward Larson's apartment. During the cab ride, Larson told this writer, "I'm going to beat those guys tomorrow, and I'm liable to pitch a no-hitter." Earlier that evening, another teammate, Herb Carey, or a friend of his, father of the Yankees' third baseman, Andy Kennedy, entered a novelty shop in Times Square that printed fake newspaper headlines. He purchased 2 of them. One read, "Larson pitches no-hitter." The other one, "Goonie Bird picks Larson to win Game 5." he returned to the hotel and taped one of the newspaper, the no-hitter, to Larson's door. Then he had second thoughts. He didn't want to jinx Larson, so he took it away. But everybody, Don Larson, perfect game, only one to pitch in the World Series. Something that's kind of ironic to me is I looked in Baseball Digest, and it lists what each batter did in each inning of the no-hitter. And in the 8th inning, a fellow Hoosier, Gil Hodges, was up to bat, and he hit a streaming liner that was caught around the ankles. The outfielder threw to first base, was not sure he had caught it, but the umpire said it was a catch. And then he went on and recorded the 9th inning and got the perfect game. Of course, the famous picture of Yogi Berra jumping into Don's arms after the game. And boy, I just get chills hearing about Yogi Berra jumping into Don's arms and a perfect game. Of course, Matt Holliday from the Philadelphia Phillies. Ironic, I always have to bring up some bad news about my Cincinnati Reds, but he's the only other pitcher to throw a no-hitter in the playoffs besides Don Larson. But I'm glad Don's a Hoosier, and it's great to bring his name up on the show.
Absolutely. I mean, the only perfect game in a World Series in Major League Baseball history from Don Larson from Michigan City, Indiana. Well done. We can't have a show without talking about that story right there. And to you young players, did you hear what Jeff said right there? Led the league in losses just a few years before that. Now he's just a legend in history because of what he did in that one game. So stay the course, kids. Stay the course. We're just about done here. Let's go to Papa Beach, and I got a bonus one after this, and we're just about ready to bring it back to Jeff for the final out. Chris, who's your final profile?
Brandon Beachy. Northwestern High School graduate, Kokomo. Led his team to the 2005 state championship game against, I believe, North Posey. Northwestern got beat after the game. Beachy was named the Mental Attitude Award winner. Beachy was also an 2005 first team All-State third baseman. Third baseman, not pitcher. Went on to play at Indiana Wesleyan, recruited as a third baseman, played a little bit of first base. And then someone realized, well, you kind of got an arm. Put him in on the mound. Had a great ending to his career. I think he finished as a junior at Indiana Wesleyan. In 2008, did not get drafted, but signed by the Atlanta Braves as a free agent. And then went on to play five seasons in the big leagues with a career ERA of I want to say 3.5 or 3.6. 3.36 ERA, and then has hung around and actually pitched professionally up until just a couple years ago through the independent baseball circuit. Mm-hmm. But I thought that was real neat. Just a kid who I remember hearing about from Northwestern, but not a pitcher, and then became a pitcher in college, and then not drafted, but made it all the way to the big leagues. And had, a pretty good stretch of 4 years. At one point, I think in 2011, he was 7-3 with the 3.6 ERA for the Braves, and just a real cool story. And then he had an injury, and he was never really the same after the injury. But I just thought that was a cool story on a kid who made an unconventional trip to the big leagues.
Absolutely, and I didn't know a lot about him when you sent me this person to add into the list here, and I'm so glad you brought him just for the reason you just said, an unconventional path. He went to NAIA college, wasn't drafted, stayed the course. Someone said, "Hey, you can throw a baseball pretty good. Let's get you into the bigs," and then that's a 12-year-old kid that got to live the dream. So, right, absolutely love it, and also as we segue from Brandon Beachy to my bonus profile here. Beachy was a story of what happens when you make good decisions For my bonus profile, has to do with this hat I'm wearing right here. We're going to talk about what happens when you make bad decisions. We're talking about this team right here. Any guesses what team that is? If you know, don't say. Here's the player right there. The Martinsville Athletics from 1924. That's where this hat comes from. 1924 Martinsville Athletics. And let me just read to you something. Remember, we're talking about Beachy was a person that made good decisions. Here's a person that made bad decisions, or we would know this person for a totally different reason, possibly. First of all, Martinsville Athletics, that was an official minor league baseball team. So this was professional baseball. Here's the story. This is the skinny version. Johnny was given the nickname Jackrabbit by his teammates this season because of his incredible speed. He turned in a fine rookie campaign for the Athletics, making the starting lineup and helping the team to a first-place finish. The Old Hickory Furniture Company awarded him $25. This is 1924, by the way, for being the team's top batter. When the season ended in August, young Dillinger, that's right, John Dillinger, recently married, was having trouble finding a job. Here's the story. Without his monthly baseball salary, he found himself in dire straits. League umpire Ed Singleton, idiot, scoundrel, may your name go forever in infamy. Ed Singleton, a petty criminal and confirmed alcoholic who was, the umpire, recruited Johnny into a scheme to rob a local grocer in September. The grocer fought back and the plan failed, with Dillinger's pistol going off and slightly wounding the victim. John soon confessed and agreed to plead guilty in exchange for leniency, but the prosecutor didn't keep his word and Dillinger was sentenced to the maximum term of 10 to 20 years on Christmas Eve. He later went on to break out of prison and leave a life of infamy, or infant, more like an infant, of infamy as a robber all throughout the Midwest. That is John Dillinger, what could have been a baseball career. Instead, it was the John Dillinger we all know him as. That was our player profiles. Guys, that was fun. Man, I could talk about those guys all day long. Let's bring it back to Sweet Lou. Jeff, we're here for the final out, so take us home.
Well, something's been bothering me for a number of years. I came to a head here a couple of weeks ago, and now this week, Mac Preps, the website that I work for through the IHSA, published a list of NFL quarterbacks last weekend. And of course, they obviously played quarterback when they were in high school, but all 8 of those quarterbacks for all 8 of those teams played other sports, baseball, basketball, what have you, besides football. And I've been hearing a lot of athletes that want to concentrate on just one sport. And not picking on anybody, but fathers, sons, whatever, if you're watching or listening, if your kid's good enough to play on in another sport, by all means, I think they need to do so. It's just a way of learning about other sports, learning about winning and losing in general. And the other tangent I'm on is what's called time management. And a quick story, my daughter in the 8th grade got cut from all the sports since I'm a sports-minded person. And she came to me at the end of her that was in the 7th grade, beginning of her 8th grade year, she came to me and said that she wanted to try out for volleyball and basketball again, but they were just, she wasn't athletic. But I told her that she could still make the team, and she wanted to make the team really bad. So I told her she could be a manager. So to make a long story short, my daughter was the manager of the Lafayette Jet boys basketball team for 4 years. And one thing that taught her that I think to this day is time management. If you can keep kids, if you can stay busy and do something that you enjoy, I think you ought to do it. And it'll teach time management, because you won't have time to get into trouble. You'll know you have to get your lessons done, and it all comes out in the wash. So multi-sport athletes, I'm all for them. The smaller schools have got to have multi-sport athletes, but I think the bigger schools need to go to it. So son, daughter, father, mother, if your kid can play is good in another sport, by all means, be a multi-sport athlete. That's my final out.
Well said, Sweet Lou. Folks, we'll see you next week on This Week in Baseball Across Indiana. Follow us at baseballacrossindiana.com on Twitter, Home Plate BAI. Thank you, folks. See you next week.